In the last episode, we saw that S-rank hunters began the raid on Jeju Island, and everything was going smoothly when suddenly one of the S-rank hunters got chopped off. Now episode 11 begins, and Tatsumi shouts as he freaks out, looking at the headless body of his teammate, then takes out his sword, rushes toward the ant, and slices it into pieces. Dongwook is facing the ant, grinding his teeth, thinking that these guys are the Queen's royal guards, and it looks like each one of them is basically an S rank. But in the end, beasts are beasts, unlike hunters, who use a wide variety of battle tactics, and their movements are limited, and as the ant clangs towards him, he uses to protect himself. He is freaking out and shouts for Miss Cha. She leaps towards him and strikes the ant. She then jumps down, facing the ant. She swings her sword, trying to make a strike towards it, but she states that their bodies are pretty tough. Way more than she thought they would be. Dongwook is freaking out, shouting that these royal guards are different from regular ants, and he is just glad that there aren't many of them. Byung-yu smiles, telling him not to worry as he is here to back him up. Yoonho smirks at his confidence, replying to him that he guesses that he is not always a scaredy cat. Byung asks him to speak for himself and stop acting like an amateur, and he smashes the ant directly to the ground. He then stands up, asking them if they forget that even if they crush their skulls, they can remain alive for quite some time, so they have to either cut off their limbs or make sure they finish them for good. Yoonho thinks that even though the queen isn't in her chamber, her royal guards are here, but these ones look like they're from an older generation, so he tells them this is just his guess, but he thinks they were cast out because they're first-generation ants, and that means a slew of second-generation guards may be waiting for them ahead. Byung states, then they had better make sure they're prepared. He opens the magic book, going through his pages when the glow of the book suddenly covers all of them in a light energy, and Dongwook thinks that he feels like a newfound strength is coursing through his body. In fact, he doesn't just feel refreshed, but he feels like he could take on a group of beasts and win. So he asks the others how about every one of them take 10 ants down each, to which Byung replies that he thinks he has got the combat skills of an A rank, so he can take care of 1 or 2 stragglers if needed. Yoonho smirks, asking him if he really thinks he is crazy enough to rely on a healer, as these buffs he has given them should be more than enough, so stand back and watch how it's done. Izawa rushes ahead, mentioning that he can't believe they have to go check up on Team Charlie because they lost contact with them, so he can't even understand what the hell they're up to. Kai, flying behind him, tells him to slow down, but Izawa keeps moving. Suddenly they land on the ground, and Izawa asks Kai if this is where Team Charlie was stationed. His eyes scan the area, locking onto the dead bodies of ants. Evidence of a battle is clear, and it looks like the team easily defeated the ants. Kei steps forward, wondering where they went. Suddenly, Izawa notices broken glasses lying on the ground. His heart pounds as he freaks out, recognizing them as Fujishima's glasses. His eyes pop out and he shouts in disbelief, stating that it's impossible. Before he can process anything further, Kai's body starts trembling. Izawa looks toward him, asking what's wrong, but Kai doesn't respond. Instead, he rips off his mask and vomits. He grinds his teeth in frustration, thinking about what that awful smell is. A rotten stench fills the air, something he has never encountered before. Suddenly, the way ahead is covered in red energy. His eyes widen as he notices something, but before he can react, a massive explosion erupts. He shouts as ice engulfs him. He struggles to use his energy to break free, but before he can fully escape, his body detonates, sending a massive burst of blood across the battlefield. A group of people observes the dead ants, one of them commenting on how much time they spent on these creatures. Another disagrees, stating that it only took 5 minutes to eliminate this many ants, meaning they were faster than usual today. Yoonho smirks, thinking that was impressive, as Byung-gu basically gave her wings, and in such a short amount of time, she probably slaughtered twice as many ants as he did. It took them 15 minutes to get here, meaning they could retrace their steps even faster. He estimates they have about 30 minutes left. Dongwook is still freaking out, realizing they need to find a way to complete this raid. Miss Cha sniffs the air, her expression serious, stating that this scent probably belongs to the queen and that she believes the queen is with her guards. Yoonho steps forward, telling her to let him check. He cautiously walks into the cave, his senses sharp. Suddenly, a massive ant appears before him. His breath catches as he wonders if that is the queen. He quickly informs the others that the queen is at the very back and that there are 8 guards in front of her. He considers that the royal guards are nearly as strong as S-rank hunters, but the team should be able to take them down while he creates a diversion to buy them time. Dongwook turns to Miss Cha, asking if she will handle the guards while he takes on the queen. She responds without hesitation, telling him not to worry and to count on her. Suddenly, another explosion shakes the ground, and flames spread rapidly. Jong-in steps forward, remarking that he usually has to restrain himself, but today it would be a shame to let any mana go unused. His eyes glow as he takes control of the flames, stepping up to face the enormous ant. The creature is suddenly struck by a barrage of arrows, and Jinwoo reassures him not to worry because he has his back. Yunho grinds his teeth, feeling the surge of energy. He reminds himself that there is no need to hold back anymore. He cracks open his armor, his body shifting. He doesn't care if he transforms into something monstrous, as long as he can exterminate every last one of these insects. His beastly form takes over, muscles expanding as his aura intensifies. Miss Cha watches from a distance, recognizing Yunho's transformation. Yunho, now radiating immense power, lets out a deafening roar, ready to unleash destruction. Yunho shouts, telling Miss Cha that he will leave it to her, and as she hears his command, she raises her dagger and strikes it into the ground, releasing the quake of provocation. Dongwook rushes forward, telling the others that the formation of the ants is beginning to fall apart. He grinds his teeth in frustration, thinking that he has to keep the queen tied down until all of her guards have been killed, so he shouts, asking the queen to attack him. On the other hand, the soldier is freaking out, thinking is the real battle about to begin? When someone from the microphone states that they have just passed the 80 mark in viewership ratings, he should move closer for a better angle. He thinks that he just needs more numbers and then, but suddenly, someone grabs him from behind. It's Byung-gu, telling him that they're in the boss lair of an S-rank dungeon, and nobody is going to take responsibility for his life here. So if he understands what he is getting at, he should stay behind him, as the real fight is about to begin. The soldier is freaking out, thinking that people always say healers aren't skilled combatants, but it must be a lie, as he feels like he is a much more capable fighter than he is, and he is an A-rank. The scene shifts to the city, where a wife is telling her husband that the hunters will be on today. So isn't he going to watch? He tells her no. She tells him not to be like that. As the reporters on TV said, the hunters will be sure to get the ants for good this time. He is busy reading his newspaper, telling her that those guys are always just talking, and he doesn't pay them any mind anymore. She tells him not to be like this, as they are out there trying to avenge their one and only child, so they should tune in, even if it's painful to watch. As he doesn't reply to her, she sits down, mentioning further that for crying out loud, he is such a grumpy old man, and as she opens the TV, the anchor states that the South Korean hunters have commenced the raid against the queen ant, and they are currently in the queen's chamber, and the largest ant ever witnessed by mankind is standing before their hunters, and Dongwook is fending her off on his own, but he needs backup. The other hunters must first quickly kill off the guards and help him. When they further mention that Yuno has defeated one of the queen's guards, suddenly, as the old woman hears people cheering, she is stunned. She looks outside, mentioning that they give her a scare, and it sounds like everyone is cheering them on. And as the news continues, people are really taken into it, being worried, and the whole city is just looking at the news, leaving everything behind. Suddenly, someone enters the room. The old lady turns around, mentioning it's her husband. The old man is about to cry as he mentions that this is their 4th time, and they need to win, asking her if she thinks the same. And now the hunters were successful in killing all the guards, and only the queen ant is left. As if she is defeated, the hunters will be able to kill off all the other ants as well. In the anchor office, one of the men tells his boss that they have surpassed 85% just now. The man is happy, stating that they set a new score. The news continues, stating that South Korea ranks the gate currently. Only the United States, China, Russia, and France are on the list. On the other side, in the dungeon, Dongwook is trying his best to stop the queen. Yunho, as he scratches the ant, asks him not to worry, as a queen without her guards is nothing but a scarecrow, and if he continues to slash the body of the ant, her blood veins spark and she shouts. She roars and suddenly holds Dongwook. He freaks out, shouting for help, when suddenly Byung-gu opens the magic book, releasing the energy out of it, and as Dongwook is out of the queen's control, Byung-gu tells her that she should have aimed for him. He smiles, and as the ants stomp toward them, he slams Dongwook's cover. He smirks, stating that he won't let her attack their healer so easily. Jong-in blazes the lightning out of him, asking others to stand back, and he rushes toward the queen to attack her, and as he smashes her with his energy, a blast happens. He thinks that the queen is done for. He could tell from his years of experience that she was on the verge of death, and victory seemed within reach, but then suddenly she roared. All of them are shocked as they can't understand what she is thinking. What is it thinking that it might be a death cry? But it feels like it's something else. It's like she is calling for someone. On the other side, a man shouts for Mr. Goto, telling him that the ants have changed their direction and are now heading for the tunnels. Goto grinds his teeth in frustration when, from the microphone, someone tells him that the jamming signals aren't working. He freaks out, standing with his dagger, thinking what the hell is happening. On the other side, in the dungeon, Miss Cha swings her sword, slicing the ant, and then comes down, asking others if it's over. Taegyu asks them if they have now become the 7th team in the world to clear an S-rank gate when Yunho asks him to wait, as something feels off to him. To his question, Dongwook replies that apparently the ants are swarming toward them as they speak, so they have to get out of here now. They're freaking out as they can't understand when Taegyu mentions that they still have time left. Does that mean the Japanese could not hold them off for 1 hour? Dongwook tells him that he doesn't know the details either, as the association is looking into it right now. Jong-in looks around in shock, stating that the flame prison he cast over the entrance has been destroyed. Every one of them is stunned when suddenly the claws of a big ant enter. Yunho shouts, stating that this doesn't make any sense, and now the king ant is standing in front of them, roaring and releasing his mana energy all over the place, crushing the surroundings. Yunho is freaking out as he still can't understand what the hell is happening when the large explosion happens, destroying the flame prison. Yunho is shocked and questions how a single ant can possess such immense strength. Miss Cha drops to the ground, overwhelmed by the intense stench. The black ant continues its approach, exuding a menacing aura. She cannot believe the sheer malice radiating from it, and remarks that this is no ordinary beast. The Ant King strides forward, its presence sending chills down their spines with each deliberate step. Dongwook tells himself that they are running out of time. They must defeat it. As it passes by him, a cold dread seizes his body, making him tremble. Yet the Ant King pays them no heed, stopping instead before the lifeless corpse of the queen. Dongwook is left stunned. It had walked right past them. A chilling silence hangs in the air before the Ant King opens its mouth and lets out a deafening scream. The sheer force of its roar crushes their spirits, and one by one they collapse to their knees under the suffocating pressure. The Ant King's gaze sweeps over them with eerie stillness. Miss Cha shudders in pain, and before she can react, the creature vanishes from sight, only to reappear directly behind her. Her eyes widen in shock, but before she can do anything, its blow slams into her stomach with devastating force. Blood spills from her mouth as she is hurled backward, crashing violently into the wall. Upon impact, she spits out another mouthful of blood. Dongwook calls out to her in alarm, but in that instant the Ant King materializes behind him. Desperately, he raises his shield to block the attack, yet it shatters instantly under the creature's overwhelming strength. A sickening crack echoes through the air as his hand is obliterated. He tries to counterattack, but the Ant King effortlessly seizes his weapon, turning it against him to sever his remaining hand. Blood splatters in every direction. Yunho stares in horror at the brutal scene, but before he can react, the Ant King moves with lightning speed, slashing him down just as mercilessly. Jong-in, frozen in fear, attempts to strike, but his efforts are futile. The beast retaliates instantly, cutting him down with ease. Taegyu, positioned from behind, steadies his bow. His target is clear, and there is no possibility of missing. He releases his arrow, but the Ant King does not flinch. Instead, it raises a hand and catches the arrow effortlessly. Taegyu's eyes widen in disbelief as the monster casually crushes the arrow into dust. Enraged, the Ant King strikes first, delivering a brutal punch that sends him reeling. Just as it moves in to finish him, it suddenly senses something, an approaching force. Dongwook crashes into the Ant King with full force, sending it stumbling backward. However, it swiftly regains its balance. Smirking, Dongwook declares that despite losing his arms, he has Byung-gu by his side. His arms have already been restored. Byung-gu is using a skill called disguise, a self-defense technique that conceals the user's presence. The only downside is that he cannot move while using it, but as a healer, it is the perfect ability for him. He continues, explaining that no matter how much the Ant King wishes to kill Byung-gu, it will be impossible to find him. As long as he keeps healing his teammates, they will not go down so easily. During the battle, the Ant King suddenly grabs Dong-wook's leg and begins slamming him into the ground with relentless force. Byung-gu immediately activates his healing ability, but then the Ant King turns its gaze toward his location. Byung-gu's breath catches in his throat. His disguise skill is still active. There is no way the monster should be able to see him. Yet, the Ant King locks onto him with an unwavering stare. Yunho, still on his knees, shouts a warning, but it is already too late. In a blink, the Ant King's hand pierces through Byung-gu's stomach, skewering him completely. Yunho's eyes widen in horror as he cries out his name. Terrified, Byung-gu urges Yunho to flee. Yunho watches in shock as the Ant King mercilessly severs Byung-gu's head. Everyone present is horrified by the gruesome sight. The Ant King then devours the severed head, enraging Yunho, who lunges at it. However, his attack proves futile as the creature easily catches him by the neck, forcing him to revert to his human form. Repeating Byung-gu's last words, Yunho pauses in surprise, catching a glimpse of Byung-gu's lingering presence. Cursing the creature, Yunho explains that by consuming its prey, it not only gains vitality but also inherits the strength and knowledge of those it devours. The Ant King scoffs, calling them all weak. It states that even though their queen has fallen, merely eliminating the soldiers will not suffice. Demanding to know who their king is, it tightens its grip around Yunho's throat. Yunho, struggling to breathe, is left confused by its words. The others are at their limits. Hae-in has already lost consciousness, Jong-in can barely move, and the cameraman is paralyzed with terror. The Ant King suddenly flinches, sensing something outside. Commenting on the presence of a formidable force, it abruptly releases Yunho and flies off. Yunho collapses to the ground, coughing. He wonders why it is heading outside and fears it may be going after Goto. Forcing himself to focus, he realizes they have no time to waste and must escape immediately. However, his thoughts are interrupted by a horrifying sight. Hordes of ants have already arrived. Outside, Goto's team moves cautiously. Ishida voices his concern, stating that something feels off. They have lost contact with Team Charlie, and now Team Delta is unreachable as well. Goto dismisses it, suggesting it may be an issue with the signals, but acknowledges that they should still be within communication range. He calls out to Team Bravo, and Kanai responds, confirming that they are alive and well. He asks if they have also lost contact with Teams Charlie and Delta, to which she affirms, stating that only Team Alpha has reported in. She offers to check on them, but he declines, saying they are already on it, and instructs her to finish their current task before meeting at the rendezvous point. Kanai acknowledges his orders, but before she can disconnect, the device beeps again. Expecting her voice, Goto is surprised when another person speaks. It is Matsumoto. Meanwhile, across the sea near China, a man aboard a ship remarks that South Korea has taken on a daring mission, though he doubts the ants will travel all the way to China. The leader of the group comments that since Japan is assisting South Korea, Goto must be aiming to ascend to the rank of a national-level hunter. The man agrees, noting that every previous national-level hunter has cleared an S-rank gate, and despite Goto's impressive record, he has yet to accomplish such a feat. The leader ponders this, and when the man asks what he is thinking, he merely replies that it is nothing, though this situation presents a perfect excuse. The man studies him carefully, and the leader, adjusting his cap, remarks that Goto still has a long way to go. The man questions his statement, prompting the leader to say that if he ever witnessed Liu Jiging in action, he would understand. The man asks if a single encounter was enough to turn him into a Liu Jigang admirer. The leader nods, explaining that he believes this raid will spell disaster for one of the two countries involved. Back at Goto's location, Matsumoto remains on the call, demanding a response. Goto, too stunned to speak, finally reacts, revealing that some of their hunters have been killed. Matsumoto coldly remarks that it seems they have suffered unnecessary losses. He reminds Goto that they specifically chose to fight the mutant ants to prevent such a situation. Goto agrees but rationalizes that their fallen hunters were simply too weak. Matsumoto criticizes his harsh perspective, but asserts that as long as Goto remains, they have no need for anyone else. He then inquires whether the South Koreans are battling the Queen. Goto confirms this, adding that all the ants previously drawn away have now returned to the cave due to a temporary disruption in the jamming signals. He suspects something may have happened, but assures that, for now, everything is under control. Matsumoto asks if he believes the South Korean team will survive, pressing him for their chances. Remembering that Jinwoo is not among them, Goto calculates their likelihood of survival based on his experience, and it's 0%. Matsumoto deems this outcome favorable. Since the Japanese hunters had seemingly done their best but were ultimately forced to retreat due to the South Korean team's failure, Goto's ambitions of becoming a national-level hunter would be thwarted. Additionally, their true objective, the elimination of the South Korean hunters, has been accomplished. With this in mind, Matsumoto orders Goto to retreat. Goto complies, informing his team of the withdrawal. He tells them they will return later for the bodies. However, just as he issues the command, he senses a presence. Suddenly, an attack comes his way. Goto manages to block it, but Ishida is not as fortunate and dies instantly. Minoru calls out to her in distress, but Goto quickly realizes that this is no ordinary ant. With a grave expression, he commands Minoru to retreat and regroup with Team Bravo. Minoru hesitates, attempting to argue, but Goto firmly warns that he will only be a hindrance if he stays. Besides that, the ant possesses an undeniably menacing presence. The Ant King inquires whether Goto is the king of the humans, leaving him stunned that the creature can speak. Smirking, Goto repeats the question mockingly before pointing his sword at the beast, boldly declaring himself as the king. The Ant King bursts into laughter before unleashing a deafening roar, and Goto is instantly overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the pressure. His body tenses as he questions how this monster can possibly wield such unfathomable power. This sensation, it is eerily familiar. He racks his memory, trying to recall where he has felt it before, and in that moment an image flashes through his mind. Jinwoo. Before he can react, his sword shatters into fragments, and in the blink of an eye, his severed head falls to the ground, his life extinguished. Back inside the cave, the Korean hunters are completely surrounded by the relentless swarm of ants. Jong-in conjures flames, forming a barrier to hold them at bay. Yunho urgently asks if he can intensify the heat, but Jong-in shakes his head, warning that doing so would consume all the oxygen in the confined space. Gritting his teeth, Yunho scans their surroundings, fully aware that everyone has sustained grievous injuries. Byung-gu had attempted to heal them, but his efforts were not enough. Among them, Jong-in alone remains capable of fighting, their only hope now resting on his ability to hold back the horde. Despite his relentless assault, the ants show no signs of stopping. Yunho clenches his fists, his heart pounding as the grim realization dawns upon him. This may very well be the end. Just as despair begins to take root, an ominous figure emerges from the shadows beneath his feet. A shadow soldier rises, halting the approaching ants. Yunho's eyes widen in shock as he struggles to comprehend the sight before him. He wonders what that thing is. In that instant, the shadow soldier sends a signal, and somewhere far away, Jinwoo immediately responds. Without hesitation, he activates Shadow Exchange. If you love solo leveling and want to see more amazing anime content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest videos. Blast off!